Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Melissa and here you'll find beauty, lifestyle, all sorts of different kind of content. I upload a video every single Monday and Wednesday, so if you like things like that, then be sure to hang around. Today we're going to talk about makeup, and one of my favorite things about makeup are eyeshadow palettes. I have a bunch of them, I get creative with them, and I use almost every single one of them. And every single Monday I like to come on here and give you a really in-depth review and a tutorial using an eyeshadow palette of the week. So for this week, we're going to focus on a newer palette, and that would be this one from Jaclyn Cosmetics. This is called the Strawberry Feels palette, and it's part of the Strawberry Feels collection, and this just recently launched. So let me show you what this looks like on the inside. So here's the colors in all of their glory. You're getting 10 different berry tone shades in here. And for today's tutorial, we're going to do a pretty basic look, but we're going to dip into a lot of these colors so you can see how they interact with one another. And of course, if you're interested in hearing my personal experience with this palette and how I interpret it, then be sure to stay around to the second part of this video because I'm going to do an in-depth review. But as for now, let's just jump right into the tutorial. Hey guys, welcome to the tutorial part of this video, and we're gonna get right on started with this eye look. If you're new to my tutorials, then I'd like to say that I always like to start with my prep steps. And by prep steps, I mean moisturizing the eye area, putting some eye primer on, tight lining, all those kind of things. So for me personally, I always like to do my tight lining before I go in with my eye primer. So for that, I'm gonna take a bright hot pink colored pencil liner, and I am just gonna go ahead and tight line my upper waterline. So now that we got that on there, I'm gonna go ahead and take my eye primer and I'm just gonna prime my entire eyelid space. And for my eye primer, I take it all the way up to my eyebrow too. And like I've been doing in my most recent videos, I'm gonna go ahead and set my eyeshadow primer with a loose finishing powder. So now that we're prepped and ready, it's time to go in with the eyeshadow. So the first thing we're gonna do is start with two brushes. I'm gonna have my applicator brush and then my blending brush. The first shade I'm dipping into is called All the Feels. And like always, I'm gonna start in the middle of my eye, and I'm just gonna put a little dot right here. And since my eyes are slightly hooded, I'm gonna make sure this red is visible when my eyes are looking straight ahead. Now I'm gonna continue this line all the way around, and I'm gonna form into a rounded shape all the way to my lower outer corner. And then I'm gonna start on my inner corner and bring this all the way up to meet the beginning point in the middle. So that's our basic shape, and now I'm gonna take some more of that same shade and just go ahead and deepen that up quite a bit. And what I'm doing now is I'm filling in this little outer part, not onto my lid, just right before it starts to hit my lid. And I'm gonna do that all the way around my eye. So essentially I'm just building it up into my crease. Now I'm gonna take my blending brush and just give that a nice fluff on the outside edge. And I'm gonna continue doing this all the way around. Now I'm taking that application brush and going into the shade called Lemonade. And I'm gonna emulate the same shape, except I'm gonna go halfway onto the color and halfway onto the place where there's no color. And I'm just making my way around the entirety of the shape. And when I'm using this method, I find the easiest way to do this is to just stamp. If you drag it, it could get a little bit messy and out of control, but if you just stamp it with the tip of your brush, it goes on pretty easily. And then once that shade is perfectly set in place, I'm gonna blend that one out just a little bit. And then the final shade that we're gonna go into for this gradient is the shade called Shortcake. And I was a little apprehensive about this shade at first because it looks pretty beige, but as I started applying this, I found it has a really pink undertone, so it looks really good. And I'm gonna use the same method as I did earlier by putting this half on the color, half on the area where I have no color, and go around the entire eye shape. And then like the other steps, taking my blending brush and just giving that a blend. Now the next step is to take your application brush and go into the deepest shade in this palette called Berry Whipped. So what I'm going to do is look at my eye and kind of mentally break it in half and put this on the exterior half. And as I'm putting this on my eyelid, I'm gonna build it up quite heavily on this mobile lid, but as I bring it slightly into the crease, I'm gonna press a little bit lighter on that area so it's not harder to blend. So blending brush again, and I'm just going to mash those colors together just a little bit in the top right above my crease. That's the good thing about this palette so far. I found that these shadows work so well. I've had no trouble getting them to blend or layer or anything yet. And the other thing I'm gonna do is blend this middle section. See how I have a harsh line right here directly in the center? And I'm gonna blend this line towards the center so it really buffs out so I don't have that harsh line there anymore. Now here's the fun part. I'm taking my application brush and going into the bright white shade called Picnic. And the place where you have to put this is kind of strategic because you want this to show above your crease. So I kind of look straight ahead and start in the middle, and I place a little dot right there. And I just kind of follow this up like I would be drawing a cut crease. And you want to take it over the center line. And of course you want to bring this all the way down into your inner corner. Now, once you get your basic shape of the cut crease area that you're doing, you want to go ahead and fill this in as opaquely as possible. And don't worry about this blend right here because we're going to blend this after we're done filling it in. If you're sitting here saying that this is taking a long time to build up, don't feel alone in that because it takes me layers and layers to build this up. This is definitely not the best white shade I've ever come across in a palette, but you can get it to work. Okay, so I have that as built up as possible, and now I'm gonna take my little brush that I've been using to apply and go into the deepest shade again. And I just have a little bit on my brush, and I'm gonna take this and fluff the edges of it, just so a little bit of red gets on the white and a little bit of white gets into the red. And just like that, we're ready for the waterline. So again, going into my handy dandy bright hot pink eyeliner, and I'm just gonna completely fill in my waterline. Now I'm taking that really tiny multi-purpose brush and going into a shade called Day Date, and I'm really coating my brush in this so it's evenly dispersed across all the bristles. And I'm gonna put a pretty thick layer on my entire lower lash line. If you go too far down, that's okay, because we're still gonna clean up this entire bottom area from all the fallout, so don't be too scared about that. And then I'm gonna take a really thin, flat definer brush and go into the red metallic shade called Fresh Picked, and I'm gonna place this really tightly against the lash line. And that's the entire eye look. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, do my other eye, throw on some mascara, and I'll be back and we'll talk about this. All right guys, I am back and my eyes are completely finished. And I definitely think this is a very cute wearable look. I think these tones bring out anybody's eye color and look good on everybody. And if this is your favorite color eyeshadow to wear, this palette is full of them. I personally see a lot of creative outlet with this color story, but that's definitely subjective. Now, I personally feel really comfortable in this eye look, and I would wear something like this out, and I would wear something like this every single day. Now, let me know in the comments if you got this palette and what you think about it. But as for right now, let's get right on into the review. Hey guys, welcome to the in-depth review portion of this video. For today's review, we're going to be talking about this Jaclyn Cosmetics Strawberry Fields palette. The first thing I always like to do is talk about a palette's packaging. And for this packaging, it's a basic bifold cardboard structure and it has a little 3D strawberry motif on the front. And if you ask me, I am not in any way astounded by this packaging. And if something as basic as a strawberry is your generic theme for your entire collection, I think that this could have been extremely opulent. In my opinion, this just feels very low effort. When you do open the palette up, there's no mirror inside, and you do have your layout right here. And just so you know, this palette does not bend all the way back. And if you're like me and you really like to hold your palette flatly in your hands, this one does not do that for you. So in here, we're getting 10 different shades, and each one weighs in at 1.7 grams. So that's a significant amount of product per pan. And within the shade range, there is one pressed pigment. So if you're sensitive to pressed pigments, please be mindful of that. And of these 10 shades, according to my observation, there are 2 different formulas. You're getting 8 mattes and 2 shimmers. So something really cool that I found out about this palette is when I was reading the ingredients on the back side of the exterior box, I actually found some really cool stuff in this formula that I've never seen in an eyeshadow palette before. I found collagen, hyaluronic acid, actual ruby powder, and rose flower extract. Now, don't ask me if any of those things actually do anything for your skin, especially in something as small as the eye area that you're applying this onto, but I just thought that was really neat to see those things in the ingredients. So let's move right into our routine data check. This palette is not clarified as being any type of clean or conscious formula. This palette is cruelty-free. This palette is not vegan. And there is a 24-month expiration date located on the back of the palette itself. So what I'm gonna do real quick is throw up some pictures of some swatches I took from this palette so you can see how every shade looks swatched out. So let's move right into our cost evaluation. If you went out and bought this palette, as it stands today, it would cost you $34. So breaking that down a little bit comes to $3.40 per shade. Breaking that down a little bit more comes to $2 per gram. So comparing the cost per shade to other palettes available on the market, it's really a little bit expensive. And additionally, compared to other palettes that I've previously reviewed, the cost per gram is just about average. So now we're gonna get into the most opinionated part of this video, which is my recommendation. Now, the first 4 things I always like to hit on is patching, creasing, staining, and blendability. As far as patchiness, I had none. As far as creasing, I had really bad creasing and a lot of fading of my eyeshadow look just only 2 hours after I had my look on. Although there are pressed pigments in this palette, I didn't see any staining at all. And in my opinion, I found these shades very, very easy to blend out on a set primed base. As far as kickback and fallout, I definitely experienced both. I had a decent amount of kickback in the pan and a pretty good bit of fallout on my face. So this is definitely an eyes before base type of palette. Now let me get into some critiques about this palette. I always look for a nice range gradient in my palettes, and I do like how this goes from light to mid-tone to deep. However, there's only one option to create any depth in your look, so it really limits a palette's versatility. I also did notice some shade redundancy amongst the mattes in particular. So the shade Picnic Pie and the shade Lemonade both look kind of different in the pans, but when swatched out, they look very, very similar to one another. And in my opinion, they're both mid-tone shades and they would serve the exact same purpose in any given eye look. Next, this palette is 80% matte heavy. So if you like an equal palette formulation balance, this palette is not for you, but I don't mind a matte heavy palette. I either like it matte heavy or equally balanced, so this does it for me. I classify this as a berry tone color story, and I don't find this unique amidst the world of palettes. But this is a unique palette in the Jaclyn Cosmetics line, and I do think it's an important clarification to make. If you were curious about the matte formulation, this is definitely a more directly pigmented formulation. So as soon as you touch your brush to your eyes, you're gonna get immediate pigment. It's not one of those ones where you have to slowly layer and build it up. A formula like this may be a bit more difficult to manage and control. There's no ultra special shades in this palette. The shimmers are just very bland and normal. They are finely milled. There's no large chunky particles in them. And I did attempt all application methods with the shimmers. I tried my finger, a dry brush, and a damp brush. And the good news is you can use any application method and they all work the same. So if you've been eyeing this palette and you've been on the fence about it and you were wondering if you should get it, in my personal opinion, I would definitely say do not get it. And of course, I have 3 reasons why I say that. My first reason is because I don't think there was very much intention put into this palette. As far as the packaging goes and the uniqueness of everything about this just seems like a very hasty release and not something that a lot of thought went into. Reason number 2 is that you're not getting any special shades in here. And the most exciting shades, which are these 2 shimmers, are the least accounted for the entire palette. So I just find it a bit bland in that regard. And for my third reason, I must reiterate that my eye look fell apart in 2 hours after I put it on. You want a palette that's going to last you at least 8 hours so you can get through a normal workday? And when I looked in the mirror shortly after putting this on, just 2 hours later, I was really upset at how my eyeshadow looked. And guys, this is not a cheap palette. This cost me $34. And judging by my experience with this, I would not wish anybody else to spend that kind of money and have this kind of performance. So for my overall palette rating, I rated this palette a D. It's not the worst thing I ever tried, but it really just didn't work out in my favor. So yeah, guys, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did like it, please give me a giant thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, just hit that thumbs down button. And until next time,